Tastes like an ashtray, Paul. It's beautiful. It's awesome.
Yeah, I I remember one of the first times I tasted whiskey at my brother-in-law's place, and I bought him Lefroy 10. For those of you listening on Spotify or watching on YouTube that know me already will know that I don't drink alcohol. I'm a teetotaler, a non-drinker, if it were. And I was meeting my brother-in-law, or soon-to-be brother-in-law, and I was trying to impress him. And I didn't want him to know I didn't drink, because I'd just gone out and bought this expensive bottle of whiskey for him. So he fixed me a glass and said, "Would you like a drink?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." And I had a sip, and it was like drinking diesel or petrol. It was foul. It was disgusting. And I had a bit of a sip, and then I just let it sit on the counter for a long time until the ice melted and it diluted it. And then I'm pretty sure I tipped it down the sink and told him it was really nice. And I've never touched it since. It's disgusting.
By the way, folks, this is a tech podcast, the show that talks about games, cameras, microphones, and audio equipment. So yeah, I just love Lefroy, Ardbeg. I love all the smoky whiskies. This one, it just, as I said, it's like an ashtray. It's like I'm licking an ashtray from some sort of cigar bar with old men. I just love licking it.
Welcome to Onboard For Delivery.
I mean, speaking of tech, Tim, did you watch The Bachelor tonight?
I haven't. No spoilers. I'm going to catch up on the weekend.
No spoilers, but I'm just wondering, I've been watching this the last few episodes, and this is not really a spoiler, but they've obviously been in lockdown, like we all have been, and they've been doing Zoom dates and things like that. Do you think they're actually in their own homes? Or do you think some of them are in Airbnbs?
Well, the Bachelor himself, he's in the Batchy pad. So
do all Bachelors, every single Bachelor has that house during the filming? Is that right?
They do, and I'll tell you what, if you got a blue light and like shined it on the walls and roof of that Batchy pad, I'm sure it would come up with lots of different colours. Imagine being in a house, Paul. You're the Bachelor. You've got 20 women, all like Instagram type models, all just throwing themselves at you, and you can't do anything because it's all on TV. So I'm sure he would have to satisfy himself, if you know what I mean. And I'm sure the walls of that place are just covered with self-love.
I love the way the girls mac on with him in their own personal time, but then when he does that with other girls, they get all upset, like he's cheating on them. And I think, you're on The Bachelor.
Yeah,
that's what you signed up for.
Yeah,
what are they doing? But speaking of one of those lights that you're talking about, I've got one of those. It's called a urine off, and it's designed to find urine and things like that with UV light if your cat or dog wheezes inside. Being a dog trainer, I've got one of those for when I go to clients' homes and things like that. But as soon as I open it up, the kids are like, "Let's go see how dirty our toilet is." And we're searching the home for wee stains and whatever other stains we can find. But it's good times. But Bachelor's great, but I don't think they're in their own homes for lockdown. Maybe some of them are. But there's no way every single bachelorette has a house that stunning. I don't believe it.
Very good point, actually. Well, the Bachelor himself actually lives in Bali, so the Batchy pad is it's probably an Airbnb room that's been rented for the season.
Yeah.
And the girls may be the same. I mean, the girls are all over the country, so they're in lockdown for a couple of weeks while they're waiting for filming to start again. So they're probably in Airbnbs. But did you notice, in terms of tech, this is a tech podcast. We've just talked about whiskey and dating. But did you notice they had GoPros? So they did some sort of
as a webcams.
Yeah. So it's very similar to the setup that we've got. So we use The Bachelor as our inspiration for the podcast. And I thought they did pretty good. I'm wishing TV would up its game a little bit. I noticed The Project do a really good job. They show video conferences and they've got multiple cameras going on, showing the two people talking over Zoom, but they've got probably a really expensive cinema camera showing the person talking to someone on a screen.
Yeah.
So I wish TV would up their game, and The Project does a great job, and hopefully, and Bachelor's doing a good job. So I think both of those are on Channel 10. So good work, Channel 10. And
and speaking of tech, Tim, what's your favourite junk food?
Favorite junk food.
And we're talking not so much drinks, but we're talking food here, chocolate, lollies, that sort of thing.
In terms of like hot food, fish and chips. Fish and chips has always been my favorite.
Fish and chips,
and
seven batter.
There's a local place here. They actually give you more. Actually, shout out to Ronnie. Shout out to Ronnie, a friend from work. So Ronnie, his family run a like a, it's not. I think it's like a fish and chips type store. He actually gave me some information. I never knew this, and I'm sure it's public knowledge. But he was saying that they always give you 2 of the cheapest thing that you order. So let's say you order flake, a couple dimmies, a potato cake, and chips. Yeah. Well, the potato cake's probably the cheapest. They'll give you 2 of them. So if once you know this knowledge,
that's right.
You then factor that in to your ordering. So if I'm ordering for my daughter and myself, and we know that we both want a potato cake each, we'll just order 1, and they'll give us 2. Sometimes they give us 3 of them. So,
do you reckon food's shrinking, Tim? Like, I ordered a 7 batter the other day. I remember when I used to order a 7 batter, it was the size of, if you know what I mean. And now they're barely the size of a fish stick. They're tiny.
Are they getting smaller, or are we getting bigger?
Oh, no, no, they're definitely getting smaller. But here's a little bit of fun fact for you, Tim. I bet you didn't know this. And I was listening to a podcast the other day, actually, and they were talking about chocolate, and this is something that I learned. Do you know that if the packet of food or biscuit says choc-coated, it actually means they've used compound chocolate instead of real chocolate? And what compound chocolate is where they basically use cheaper ingredients instead of using cocoa butter. So it's basically crap chocolate. And if it says chocolate coated, then they do use real milk chocolate. Did you know that?
I did not know that. And it was funny because before this podcast, my brother Paul, also knows my brother. He said, I've got this thing about food, but no, I'm going to save it for the podcast. So Paul you were doing research. So sometime during this week, you looked up chocolate just for the podcast, for the tech podcast, mind you, just to see my reaction. And actually, that is a good fun fact because I did not know that, and I like learning.
Yeah, and this is the thing, right? So the things that I remember growing up with, chocolate coated, wagon wheels, for example, they were delicious growing up. And now when I have a wagon wheel, I'm like, ugh, I don't really like them, but I couldn't put my finger on why. Then you look at the packet, choc coated. Yeah, it's not real chocolate.
So our household growing up, Paul and I, Mum would hide the food. If there was good food in the house, if there was wagon wheels or chocolate or anything like that, Mum would hide it because she knew that we would just demolish it. Now, occasionally we would find the hiding spot. Now, what a smart person would do would be just eat a small bit at a time, so your parents, your mum or dad, wouldn't notice that you've taken it. But what we would do is, if I found it, I would eat the whole thing because I know as soon as Paul sees it, he's going to eat the whole thing. So it's a bit of an arms race. So we would just eat the whole damn thing. And another story I've got when it comes to food growing up, I remember my Uncle Frank. So shout out to Frank.
Oh, Frankie.
He changed our world when it came to brothers or sisters or siblings. You've got a Mars bar. How do you divide a Mars bar fairly between 2 siblings? Do you remember, Paul, how you do that fairly?
You cut it in half?
Well, what if? Okay, so let's say you get the job of cut. You've got the knife, so you cut it in half.
Okay. Yep, I know where you're going. I've just realised where you're going. And my kids do this too. Today, actually, my kids spilled soft drink because they were pouring it in glasses, and one kid got a molecule more than the other, and they had to even it up. But what we did growing up, is it the you cut, I choose scenario? One. Is that what you're getting at?
That's the one. So one person cuts, the other one chooses. And that changed parenting forever. Yeah. So for those parents out there, just remember that top tip. You tuned into the tech podcast to hear parenting tips, and that tip is one cuts, the other one chooses.
Speaking of tech news, did you know the Xbox One X, its older brother, is being released this year, or the next-gen consoles, Xbox Series X and Xbox Series S, not to be confused with each other, are being released on November 10, and one is a digital-only console with lower grade graphics and less components, but it is a lot cheaper. But you're not much of a console gamer yourself.
I've got consoles. I usually join the bandwagon about 5 years after they get released.
Yeah.
And so I've got an Xbox 360 actually at the moment, and that's all I've got. But that sounds fantastic, Paul. That's great news. So digital only. So the future. So they're now releasing an Xbox that has no drive, no CD drive or DVD or Blu-ray drive, because who needs that anymore? So that sounds like a fantastic idea. I'm so happy that Microsoft are going down that path, that digital only path. That sounds like a great idea.
No, Tim. I'll have to stop you there. It's not a good idea. I'm pissed. I am so pissed with this, and I'll tell you why. What size do you think the average game is in terms of gigabytes these days? Are you out of the loop, or do you know what an average game is?
I'd say the average is about 6, if you know what I mean.
Good guess, Tim. The last 3 games I have downloaded have been 60 to 120 gig each. That's a lot of gig per game.
That would hurt anyway.
It definitely would, especially if you haven't got the space. Now, the Xbox One S, not only is it digital only, so you have to... I'm trying so hard.
When it comes to Xboxes, you want digits. You want the digits, if you know what I mean.
Okay,
anyway,
no, we're good. Okay, so this is a serious roast. I'm pissed. I'm really angry. Now, first of all, the Xbox One S has a 512 gigabyte hard drive. Now, by my calculations, that would probably have space for about 5 good games. And that's about it before you've got to buy another hard drive. So there's your first problem, Microsoft. Make a hard drive. My phone has a 512 gig hard drive in it. Okay, lift your game. That's the first thing. Digital only. Now, I was looking online the other day at a digital only game, and I looked on I think it was Big W website, and it was $19, and online it was still $100, $99.99. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm not spending $100 on a game that I can get for $19. So you go to Big W, you buy the game for $19, you come home, but you can't put it in because there's no CD drive. Now, I understand that digital is the future. We get that. But you need to implement some sort of plan to make digital games more affordable for people that have these consoles. Now, I would hazard a guess and say that most people that are buying the digital-only edition of the Xbox are ones that potentially cannot afford the more expensive one. That's why they're buying it. So money is already tight. And then they're going to basically, destroy them again by releasing games that cost more money to buy. Digital should be cheaper. I mean, digital, there's no CD. They're not being delivered to the shop. There's no rent for the shop for people to pay. It should be cheaper. And unless they've got a way of adjusting that, a good company that does it really well is Steam. Steam is on PC for those viewers. Now, Steam has sales all the time. You can add things to your wish list, and then they will email you and let you know when it's on sale. So you can jump on and get good deals on games. But also, if you play less than 5 hours of those games and you've had it for a short amount of time, you can still get a refund on those games. And they need to do something like that with Microsoft Xbox as well, because I'm not buying it. If I've got to download games at a higher cost without the option of refunding, I hope they do something about that. But if they don't, they're not getting my money.
Yeah. So in other words, Microsoft, you're getting the thumb, and not in a good way. In fact, yeah. So Microsoft, yeah, lift your game. That is, we're onto you, and we're not. And you know what? Paul is pissed, and you don't want a pissed Paul. So anyway, Paul, that I totally agree. I think they've definitely got to change that model and listen to their customers. So I'm sure Sony won't do what Microsoft are doing. Sony seem to listen to their customers. So we'll see what Sony do with their next PlayStation. Do you know many details about the next Sony
Yeah, well, they I've heard a rumor they're going to release details tomorrow, so we don't know too much about it yet. We know what it looks like. Now, by the way, viewers, if you're watching this, tomorrow has already happened and you already know the information because this is being recorded before time. This is not live. But yeah, I believe it's being released tomorrow. So we'll know more on the next podcast. We'll have a bit of a chat about that, and the next, maybe not the next one, but we'll talk about it at some point. But it looks good. The PS5 looks great. It looks really good. So looking forward to that one. But on a lighter note, Tim, you've had a lot of success this week with color grading and things like that, because after all, we are a tech podcast. Do you want to talk about some of your experiences with color grading and correction of things or videos basically after in post?
Yeah, so what I've been doing is I'm using a Sony camera, so the Sony A6400, and when you buy the camera, the default setting is standard, and standard looks great. In most cases, it just looks great. But there are some hidden features, or they're not so much hidden, but there's some features. If you go away from the standard settings, you can choose a picture profile, and the picture profile lets you get more dynamic range out of the camera. And what I mean by that is between the blacks and the whites, there's more shades in between. So you're going to have a more realistic looking picture. So skin tones in particular, or the sky. I did some video footage of my daughter just running through a park, and we had the sky in the background. And by using the picture profiles, you can get more dynamic range and bring the highlights down and the shadows up and so forth, and get some really beautiful details. And also change the colors to make the sky a bit more purple or a bit more red or more blue, and get more details in the clouds and make it look really cinematic. So really, yeah, this week finally had some success doing that. I've been trying for weeks and haven't really come up with anything that looks half decent. So that's been great fun. So yeah, actually achieved something technical this week. And yeah, there's a long way to go. But I'm using the Cine 4 profile for those using Sony cameras. So Cine 4 seems to be one of the most popular profiles. There's also S-Log, which is more difficult to use, but that technically has the most range, but it's also the most difficult to use, if you know what I mean. And also this week, we've also been doing some real estate videography. We've been practicing that, and with real estate videography, you really need to learn how to handle the gimbal, if you know what I mean. And not only that, so you've got basically one hand on the gimbal, and so you hold it like, this sort of, you hold it like this, yeah. Paul knows how to do this really well, actually. You're a complete natural. So you've got one hand on the gimbal. Now, the other hand, you've got to kind of jerk the focus. So you've got to sort of rock back and forth until you get the focus just right, if you know what I mean. So you're kind of doing this sort of motion. Yeah. And yeah, so basically had some good success using manual focus, using the gimbal, and using some of the settings on the monitor to tell, to help tell whether you're in focus. So it's called focus peaking. And yeah, so I'll run some B-roll here, but basically if you've just got this sort of jerking motion, you kind of twist and you hold it like this, and it makes sure if you can move like this and the footage is perfectly still and stable. So yeah, that's what I've been doing during the week. What about you, Paul? What have you been doing during the week, if you know what I mean? All right, are you there, Paul?
Did you think I was frozen for a minute?
I have to edit that out.
I wanted to trick you to think I was frozen, but did it work?
That's going to work great for those listening on the podcast on Spotify. By the way, folks, we're on Spotify, YouTube, and all other popular podcasting networks.
We've got a listener over in the US at the moment on Overcast, which is interesting. So we've got viewers all around the world, or listeners all around the world. Some of you are watching on YouTube, which is great. You can listen to us and watch all the hilarity, but you can also listen on Spotify while you're driving. I do that, actually. I'm not sure if that's a bit of a nerd thing, but when I'm driving the car and I'm listening to podcasts, I will throw on the Onboard For Delivery podcast and have a bit of a listen. It's always fun. But, well, Tim, I've got some exciting news, actually. We're not going to give too much away just yet, but we have got a special guest coming up on the show. Not today, but in an episode not too far away, we've got a well, what would you call this guest, Tim?
Oh, well, I would say this person is a comedian.
He's well known
On TV.
on radio.
On radio, yep. Has done movies.
Has done movies.
I think one movie in particular was with Eric Bana.
Yes, that's true. Yep.
Yep.
He's done
He's
quite
been-
a few movies actually.
He has. He's been on The Project.
He's had yeah, that's right. Yep.
He's been on.
Have you been paying attention?
Not yet, Paul. I'm still trying to work out what the podcast is all about. But
It's a tech podcast, but he has also been on the TV show. Have you been paying attention?
okay, so big news. So okay, this is big news, Paul. I can't wait. You know what? So we found out this celebrity has said yes to being on the show. I was so excited. I was nursing a semi before once I got the news. I was like, this is what we need for the podcast. We need a celebrity because you know,
okay. I thought you meant we need a semi.
there's only so many conversations my brother and I can have about technology. Given this is a tech podcast, by the way, folks, there's only so many things happening in the tech world at the moment, and that's why we talk about Bachelor, chocolate, whiskey, anything that comes to mind. So we are so excited. So stay tuned because in the coming weeks we will have a special guest. Paul,
Yes.
I've got some more news.
Oh, okay. What's
Okay.
this?
I was on YouTube earlier today,
Okay.
just looking up my normal.
Nothing new so far.
Just looking up. I sort of finished with.
You sure
the
it was
other-
YouTube?
Well, I'd finished with the other websites, if you know what I mean.
The other tube?
Yeah, the other tube, and this trailer for a new movie came out, and it was called Dune, and I'm like,
Dune?
I'm like, I remember Dune. There's a game I used to play years ago.
Dune! With
called
the
Dune.
harvesters.
It's called Dune 2.
Yes.
So Dune was a book written years ago. I can't remember the author. If you remember the author, comment down below. Give us a thumb while you're down there. So thumb us while
Down
you're down
below.
there. And so Dune was written by this famous author, and there was a game series that was made. Dune, I think there was Dune 1, which not many people played, and then Dune 2, which was the prototype for Command and Conquer and Warcraft and all those games that followed.
Yeah.
So do you remember playing Dune 2?
Yeah, is that the one that, did you have to harvest ore or something like that?
Spice.
Spice, yes.
Yes. It was spice.
You always have to add a bit of spice in your life, if you know what I mean. I remember June 2, I don't remember June 1 that much, but June 2, yeah, I remember that. That was great.
Do you remember the three houses? So I looked this up earlier, but do you remember the three houses? You could choose to be either the red house, the green, or the blue.
Yeah.
Do you remember their names?
Soviet? No, that was Red Alert, was it?
Yeah, that's Red Alert.
Oh, give me a clue. I like these
Okay,
games.
well, the red one starts with an H. And it rhymes with Bogan.
Hogan?
Close. Harkonnen.
Oh, Harkonnen. Yes.
units deployed.
Yes.
Then
Yeah,
the second one,
Harkonnen, yep.
the blue team, or the blue
Yep.
house was... I had this before. I've just lost it.
I remember Harkonnen. I used to love Harkonnen.
I think it starts with an A. I think I've forgotten the actual name. I know what it rhymes with, but
What's
I
it
can't
rhymes with?
remember. It rhymes with tradies.
No. Arcades.
Something like that. I forgot.
Archimedes. What is it?
Great. I know. If you know, comment below. We've forgotten what it is. It's like a tradies. A tradies units deployed.
Atreides.
And then there was the green, the devious green house, and there was even a one of their tanks was called it was like some sort of devious. So the greenhouse. Do you remember the green? Anyone comment below?
Oh,
I looked this up just before.
I can't remember as you're saying them. As soon as you mention them, I'm like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
But before you mention them, I've
So
got a blank.
Harkonnen were like the brawn. They were
Yeah.
the full on tanks with all the fire.
Harkonnen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
with all the firepower. Atreides, they were kind of the
Atreides.
intelligent. They were the blue ones. They were intelligent. All
Yeah.
their weaponry was intelligent. And then the green ones were more devious. They were more sneaky. and it will come back to me. I just can't remember the name. It was like I've forgotten what it is. I've totally forgotten. So the movie Dune looks great, and it even has the sandworms that come up and swallow the.
I remember when the sandworms used to go through the ground.
Why am I scratching nuts? Why am I doing the scratching nuts?
Do you remember? Was there the worms that you can send underground and they would swallow?
Well, I don't think you had control over the worm, if you know what I mean.
Oh, that might have been just like a tornado. Yeah, okay, yeah.
The worm had a mind of its own. It kind of did what it wanted to do, and it
Oh.
swallowed whatever it wanted to swallow, if you know what I mean. So, yeah, it was just a great game, and it was single player only. But the Dune movie's coming out, so it just brought back memories of the Dune game back in the day. So,
Love Dune.
So speaking of nostalgia, memories back in the day, are there any TV shows or games or anything that springs to mind? We talked about this topic last week, and it was a fun topic. Anything back in the day, or let's say technology. Is there any technology you can think of from back in the day that brings back these nostalgic memories?
Yeah, well, I mean, this is probably not something that everyone would, attest to. But I actually bought with my first paycheck when I worked at Dick Smith electronics store, and the first paycheck I bought this. It was like $1,100, right? Which is back then, that's a lot of money. I mean, it's still a lot of money now, but I was young and dumb, and I paid $1,100 for this top of the range digital tuner. So I could listen to the police and the fire and all that sort of stuff. All that stuff was going on. Basically the police scanners. And I bought this and then realized that the police radio signal was encrypted and never worked. So all I could listen to was the taxi drivers of Melbourne driving around, picking people up and delivering people off. And it was like, what a waste of money. But that was terrible. But technology, it's funny, you say what to remember from technology. Growing up, we didn't have that much technology. Mobile phones have only been around since the 90s. Like proper phones and smartphones. Even, I think the iPhone was released in 2007.
It was.
So that technology that people know of today is very different from what we had growing up. So, I mean, we had a phone in the house that had a cord that was about 10 meters long. Remember those phones that hung on the wall? And then it used to get tangled, and you had to like hold it up and then wait for it to untangle, then plug it back in. Do you remember that?
Yeah. You had to ring around in a circle.
Yeah, by turning.
Yeah.
I saw a video the other day, this millennial, or someone, Gen Y or whatever it was. The kid was about 17 years old, and they gave him one of those phones, and he didn't know what to do with it. He didn't know how to ring, didn't know how it worked, but all that talk to him about Dune.
It's a very similar technique to the stabilizing your gimbal.
Do you remember Warcraft? Warcraft 1 or Warcraft 2, and the little peons? Remember how they used to speak? And they used to go, "We're being attacked!" Remember that?
I do.
I'm getting seasick.
Actually, that brings back a memory of high school. So back in high school, we had history class. And I remember this one guy in the class. I won't say his names. I'll just give his initials. His name was Elijah. Anyway, it's funny you remember these certain things from high school. And history class, you had to interview one of your grandparents or someone that was old, like someone that you know that's old. And he was telling a story about how his grandfather was in World War II, and he used to sit on the beach in like New South Wales and watch the planes dogfight. And the teachers, everyone in the class, like, was there dogfighting planes in World War II over Sydney? I don't remember that was part of history. I don't know if that really happened. And he's standing up in front of the class telling us this story like it really happened. He was committed. He was committed to it. And then he said that his grandfather was in the Navy or something, and he was on a submarine in World War II. And we're like, okay, we'll forgive him for the dogfighting thing.
Yeah.
And they said, what rank was he? And he had no idea. So he's made it up on the spot. And this guy was a gamer. He'd played Warcraft and all that. And he just goes, he was a peasant. Because in the game, the peasant is like the lowest. Is like the lowest character. So
Yeah.
I think what he meant to say was he's just like one of the officers. He's like the
Yeah.
lowest. He's lowest ranking, but he called him a peasant. I was in hysterics. This
That's
guy watching the
hilarious.
planes dogfight in World War II, and he was a peasant in the Navy. Great memories of high school. Yeah.
High school's great. You know, one thing I do remember from school, Tim, compared to school today, is the teachers are a lot better looking now than they were. Where are the teachers of today back when we were in high school? We had Albert Einstein looking teachers. What's happened? Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I remember, I won't say her last name, Mrs. H, and she was like this full-figured woman, let's just say, if you know what I mean, full-figured. And she taught us in home economics, the cooking class, and she was so strict.
She's eating all the food, was she, Tim?
Yeah, she was. She was super strict. And one of my mates, his name was I won't say his name or any initials. His name was Lachlan. He would I don't know what he was doing, but he stood at the back of the class, and Mrs. H was demonstrating. She was super strict. Like, you don't cross her. You pay attention in this class. You get in trouble. And he was up the back of the class, and we're just paying. Everyone else is paying attention, and all of a sudden, we hear this noise, and we turn around and go, "What was that?" And basically, he knocked a bin over, one of those big sort of trash bins. He knocked it over, and I don't know what he was doing, but the whole class just went silent and just turned around and looked at him, and he's standing there, and then he, just like a cartoon, without hesitation, he started to go.
Looking up all around.
It was like a cartoon. Thinking no one would notice. It was a classic. So haven't seen Lachlan for years. I don't know what he's up to, but those memories from high school, I've still got some of those memories.
Was that Lachlan who can recite the periodic table of elements?
That was the one. Yeah,
like hydrogen,
one.
helium, lithium, beryllium, boron, carbon. He was my inspiration to learn that.
Really?
I'm not even joking, yeah. Because he could do it, and I was like, I want to learn how to recite the periodic table.
So Lachlan, if you're out there, if you're listening, or if anyone knows Lachlan, please let him know and give us a thumb, and we'll get in touch. Maybe we'll get Lachlan on as a guest in the future. We can learn some more
I
about
wonder what
technology
he's doing. I wonder if he's doing
and chemistry.
I wonder if he's doing any sciencey stuff now. He was really into chemistry.
Yeah.
Really, like one of the top students in that regard.
He was. Yeah. I'd love to see what he's up to these days. So, Paul, that's been a pretty good episode. We have talked about food, Bachelor, high school,
Chocolate.
We've talked about dogfighting in World War II. We've talked about how to spoil a bachelor pad.
And by the way, this is a tech podcast.
This is a tech podcast. So, without any further ado, we have a special guest. He won't be on the next episode, but he will be on one very soon. Don't you worry. So, on that note, I think it's time to end today's podcast. Say goodnight to the folks of Onboard For Delivery. So, without any further ado, it's good night.
Good night. That's a wrap. That was excellent.